Maria Santos moved her cleaning cloth across the last table in the big ballroom. The white cloth picked up crumbs and small drops of spilled wine. Her old sneakers made small squeaking sounds on the shiny marble floor. She had cleaned this floor so many times in the past 3 years that she knew every crack and every spot that needed extra work. The clock on the wall showed 8 in the evening. Maria's shift usually ended at 9, but tonight was different. Tonight, the Grandview Resort was hosting a big charity event. Rich people from all over the city had come to eat expensive food and give money to help sick children. Maria had seen many events like this before. The guests always wore beautiful clothes and smiled bright smiles. They never looked at her. To them, she was invisible. Just another cleaning lady in a gray uniform. Maria didn't mind being invisible most of the time. It made the work easier. She could clean and think about other things. She thought about her grocery list. She thought about her small apartment and the leaking faucet she needed to fix. She thought about her sister back in the Philippines who had just sent photos of her new baby. Life was simple now. Quiet. Safe. The ballroom looked like something from a fairy tale tonight. Huge crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, throwing little rainbows of light across the room. White tablecloths covered every table. Fresh flowers sat in tall vases, filling the air with sweet smells. Women wore long dresses that sparkled when they moved. The dresses were red and blue and gold and silver. Their jewelry caught the light. Diamond earrings, pearl necklaces, gold bracelets that probably cost more than Maria made in a whole year. The men wore black tuxedos with bow ties. They laughed loud laughs and shook hands firmly. They talked about business deals and golf games and vacation homes. Maria moved between them like a ghost, picking up empty glasses and dirty napkins. She had learned long ago to move quietly and quickly. Don't bump into anyone. Don't interrupt conversations. Don't draw attention. She carried a tray of dirty dishes toward the kitchen door. Through the door's small window, she could see the kitchen staff moving fast. Cooks shouted orders, waiters rushed in and out with trays of food. The head chef, a large man named Pierre, was yelling at someone about the sauce for the main course. Maria pushed through the door carefully, balancing her heavy tray. "Watch out!" A waiter named Tommy nearly crashed into her. He was carrying a tray of champagne glasses filled with bubbling golden liquid. "Sorry, Maria. Crazy night." "It's okay," Maria said softly. She set her tray down by the big steel sink where another worker was washing dishes. The hot water created clouds of steam that made the kitchen feel like a sauna. Maria wiped sweat from her forehead and headed back to the ballroom. As she pushed through the door again, she noticed people were getting restless. The dinner had been served and eaten. Waiters had cleared the main course plates. Now people sat at their tables, talking and drinking wine, waiting for something. Maria remembered hearing about tonight's entertainment. A famous opera singer was supposed to perform. The guests had paid a lot of money to hear her sing. $10,000 per person, Maria had heard one of the managers say. She couldn't imagine having that much money to spend on one dinner. Near the service entrance, Maria saw Rebecca Chen, the event coordinator, talking on her phone. Rebecca was a thin woman in her 30s, who always wore expensive suits and high heels. Tonight she wore a dark blue dress and looked very stressed. Her face was red and her hand shook as she held the phone to her ear. "What do you mean she can't come?" Rebecca's voice was loud and angry. "She confirmed yesterday. We have 200 guests waiting. What am I supposed to tell them?" Maria tried to walk past quietly, but she could hear every word. The famous opera singer was sick. She had a fever and couldn't travel. She wasn't coming. There would be no performance. Rebecca ended the call and immediately started dialing another number. Her fingers fumbled on the screen. She took a deep breath and waited for someone to answer. "Hello? Yes, this is Rebecca Chen from the Grandview Resort. I need a classical singer immediately, tonight. Yes, I know it's short notice. We had a cancellation. Can you help?" She listened for a moment. Her face fell. "I see. Yes, I understand. Thank you anyway." She made another call, then another. Each time the answer was the same. No one was available on such short notice. The good singers were already booked for other events. The ones who were free were not good enough for this kind of event. Maria set down her cleaning supplies and watched from a distance. She felt sorry for Rebecca. The woman looked like she might cry. This was her job on the line. If the guests were unhappy, Rebecca would be blamed. She might even lose her job. In the ballroom, guests were starting to complain. Maria heard their voices getting louder. "When does the entertainment start?" A woman in a red dress asked a waiter. "I didn't pay $10,000 to just eat dinner," a man with gray hair said to his wife. "This is unprofessional," another guest said, loud enough for others to hear. Rebecca made one more phone call. This time she didn't even try to hide her desperation. "Please, I'm begging you, any singer, I don't care if they're not famous. I just need someone who can sing classical music, opera, art songs, anything." But the answer was still no. Rebecca ended the call and leaned against the wall. She looked defeated. Her phone dangled from her hand. A tear ran down her cheek, ruining her careful makeup. Maria stood frozen in place. Her heart was beating fast. Inside her chest, she felt something stirring. It was a feeling she hadn't felt in a very long time, a feeling she had buried deep down and tried to forget. It was the feeling of standing on a stage, the feeling of taking a deep breath and opening her mouth to sing, the feeling of her voice filling a room and making people stop everything to listen. She closed her eyes for a moment. She was 42 years old. She was a cleaning lady. She wore a gray uniform and old sneakers. Her hands were rough from years of scrubbing and cleaning. She had not sung in public for 20 years. 20 years. That part of her life was over, finished, dead, and buried. But watching Rebecca cry, hearing the guests complain, Maria felt that old feeling grow stronger. It pushed up from her chest into her throat. It made her hands shake. It made her take a step forward, then another step, then another. Before she could think too much and change her mind, Maria walked up to Rebecca. Her voice came out small and scared. "Excuse me, Miss Rebecca." Rebecca looked up. Her eyes were red and wet. She saw Maria standing there in her cleaning uniform. For a moment, Rebecca's face showed confusion. Why was the cleaning lady talking to her right now? Couldn't she see this was a crisis? "Not now, Maria," Rebecca said. Her voice was tired. "I have a very big problem. I need to figure out what to do." Maria's mouth felt dry. Her heart pounded so hard she thought Rebecca might hear it. But she forced herself to speak. "I know. I heard. About the singer who got sick." Maria paused. She almost turned and walked away. Almost. But then she said the words that would change everything. "I could sing. If you need someone, I could do it." Rebecca stared at her like Maria had just spoken in a foreign language. Her eyebrows went up. Her mouth opened slightly. Then she shook her head. "You? Maria, I need a professional singer, a real performer. These are very important people in that room. Very important. They paid a lot of money. I can't just have anyone go out there." The words stung, but Maria understood. Why would Rebecca believe her? She was just the cleaning lady. But Maria had come this far. She couldn't stop now. "I understand," Maria said quietly. "But I'm not just anyone. I used to perform before I came here. Before I started this job. It was a long time ago, but I was a professional singer. I studied music. I performed in concert halls." Rebecca's expression changed a little. The dismissive look was replaced by something else, desperation, curiosity, hope, maybe. She studied Maria's face, looking for signs of a lie or a joke. "You sang professionally? What kind of singing? Classical music, opera, art songs?" "I studied at a conservatory in the Philippines. I performed all over Southeast Asia. I had a career." Maria's voice grew a tiny bit stronger as she remembered. "Then my mother got sick and I had to stop. I came here to help my family. But I still know how to sing. I still remember everything I learned." Rebecca looked at her phone, then at the ballroom door, then back at Maria. In the ballroom, the noise was getting louder. People were definitely unhappy now. Someone was probably going to come looking for Rebecca soon to demand answers. "Do you have any proof? Any videos or recordings?" Rebecca asked. "No," Maria admitted. "Everything was before smartphones were common, and I left everything behind when I came to America. I only brought the important things. Photos of my family, my mother's jewelry. I didn't think I would ever perform again, so I didn't keep my press clippings or programs. Rebecca bit her lip. She looked like she was trying to solve an impossible math problem. She had no other options. Every other singer in the city was busy or unavailable. The guests were getting angry. The hotel's reputation was at stake. And here was her cleaning lady, claiming she used to be an opera singer. It sounded crazy. It sounded impossible. But Rebecca was out of options. Okay, Rebecca finally said. Okay, we'll try it. But Maria, if this doesn't work, if you can't really sing, this will be very bad. For both of us. Do you understand? I understand, Maria said. Her hands were shaking now. What had she done? What was she thinking? She hadn't performed in 20 years. She practiced in her car and in the shower, but that was different from standing in front of 200 rich people who expected perfection. Come with me, Rebecca said. She grabbed Maria's hand and pulled her toward the staff areas. We need to find you something to wear. You can't go out there in your uniform. And we need to fix your hair. Do you wear makeup? A little, Maria said. Not much. They rushed through the hallways. Other staff members stared as they passed. Why was the event coordinator dragging the cleaning lady through the building? Where were they going in such a hurry? Rebecca led Maria to the hotel's boutique shop. It was closed for the evening, but Rebecca had keys. She unlocked the door and turned on the lights. Racks of expensive dresses and suits filled the small store. Find something black, Rebecca said. Something simple. Classical singers usually wear black. Hurry. Maria moved through the racks with shaking hands. Everything was so expensive, so beautiful, so far from anything she normally wore. She found a simple black dress that looked like it might fit. It had long sleeves and fell to just below the knee. Nothing fancy, but elegant. That's good, Rebecca said. Go change. Bathroom is there. I'll call someone to help with your hair and makeup. We have maybe 15 minutes before people start leaving. Maria took the dress and went into the small bathroom. She locked the door and looked at herself in the mirror. Her face was pale. Her eyes were wide with fear. Her gray cleaning uniform seemed to mock her. Who did she think she was? She was 42 years old. She was tired. She had worked a full shift already. Her feet hurt. Her back ached. And now she was going to go out and sing for 200 rich people who would judge every note. She thought about running away. She could take off the uniform, put on her regular clothes, and just leave. Walk out the back door. Rebecca would figure something out. Or maybe the event would just end early. It wasn't Maria's problem. But then she thought about her younger self. The girl who had stood on stages and felt the music flow through her like electricity. The girl who had dreamed of singing in great concert halls. The girl who had given it all up to save her family. That girl deserved one more chance, one more moment in the spotlight. Maria took off her uniform and put on the black dress. It fit perfectly. She looked at herself again. Already she looked different, more like the person she used to be. There was a knock on the door. Maria, are you ready? I have someone here to help with your appearance. Maria opened the door. A young woman with a makeup kit stood next to Rebecca. The young woman, whose name tag said Crystal, looked confused but professional. We need to make her look good for a performance, Rebecca said. You have 10 minutes. Crystal worked fast. She pulled Maria's hair out of its practical bun and brushed it until it fell in soft waves around her shoulders. She applied makeup, not too much, just enough to make Maria look polished and professional under the bright stage lights. Some foundation, a little blush, eyeshadow, lipstick. When Crystal was done, Maria looked in the mirror again. She barely recognized herself. She looked like the singer she used to be, like someone who belonged on a stage. Oh, Rebecca said, seeing Maria's transformation. Oh, Maria, you look beautiful. You really were a performer, weren't you? Maria nodded. She couldn't speak. Her throat felt tight with emotion. Okay, Rebecca said. Now the hard part. Can you really sing? What do you need? Sheet music. An accompanist? What songs do you know? I don't need sheet music, Maria said. I have songs memorized. Dozens of them. I never forgot. And yes, I'll need the piano player. Is there someone here who can play classical music? We have Marcus. He plays piano for our regular entertainment. He knows classical pieces. Come on, we need to brief him and get you ready. The guests are this close to walking out. They hurried to a small room behind the stage. Marcus was there, a young man in his 20s with neat hair and nervous hands. He looked up when they entered. "Marcus, this is Maria. She's going to perform tonight. She'll sing classical pieces. Can you accompany her?" Rebecca spoke fast, her words tumbling over each other. Marcus looked at Maria, then at Rebecca, then back at Maria. "Is this a joke? The cleaning lady is going to sing opera?" "Yes," Rebecca said firmly. "And you're going to play for her. Can you do it or not?" "I can play," Marcus said. He still looked doubtful. "What pieces?" Maria listed several famous arias and art songs. Marcus knew most of them. For the ones he didn't know well, Maria hummed a few bars and he nodded, recognizing them. "We'll start with O mio babbino caro from Puccini," Maria said. Her voice was steadier now. Talking about music made her feel more confident. Then Ave Maria by Schubert. Then maybe Casta Diva if they want more. "Is that okay?" Marcus nodded slowly. "Those are beautiful pieces. But they're also very difficult. Are you sure you can sing them?" "I can sing them," Maria said. And in that moment she believed it. She felt something clicking into place inside her. The scared cleaning lady was fading away. The singer was coming back. Rebecca checked her watch. "We need to go now. Right now. I'll introduce you. Just walk out when I call your name." "Can you do this, Maria?" Maria took a deep breath. She thought about everything that had led to this moment. All the years of sacrifice. All the dreams she had buried. All the time she had sung alone in her car, pretending no one could hear. This was her chance. Maybe her only chance. To show the world that she was still here. Still capable. Still worthy. "I can do this," Maria said. Maria stood in the small room behind the stage, waiting. She could hear Rebecca's voice through the wall, making an announcement to the guests. Marcus sat at the piano, warming up his fingers with quiet scales. Maria closed her eyes and tried to calm her racing heart. But the moment she closed her eyes, memories came flooding back. Memories she had kept locked away for 20 years. She was 7 years old again, standing in her family's small house in Manila. The house had 3 rooms and walls made of concrete blocks. The roof was tin, and when it rained, the sound was so loud you couldn't hear yourself think. But Maria loved that house. It was home. Her mother was cooking rice and fish in the tiny kitchen. The smell filled the house. Maria was singing to herself, making up a song about the neighbor's cat. Her mother stopped stirring the pot and listened. "Maria," her mother said, turning around. "Sing that again." Maria sang her little cat song again. She didn't think it was special. She sang all the time. Singing was as natural to her as breathing. Her mother set down the wooden spoon and knelt in front of Maria. She took Maria's small face in her hands. Her mother's hands smelled like ginger and garlic and home. "You have a gift," her mother said softly. "A real gift. Your voice is special, Anna. We need to find you a teacher. But music lessons cost money." Maria's father drove a jeepney, one of the colorful buses that crowded Manila's streets. Her mother sold vegetables at the market. They had enough money for food and rent, but not much extra. Music lessons seemed impossible. Still, Maria's mother was determined. She talked to neighbors and friends. She asked questions at the church. Finally, she found a retired music teacher named Mrs. Reyes who lived 3 streets away. Mrs. Reyes was old and bent over from years of sitting at the piano, but her hearing was sharp and her knowledge was deep. Maria's mother brought her to Mrs. Reyes's house. The old woman asked Maria to sing something, anything. Maria sang a folk song her grandmother had taught her. When she finished, Mrs. Reyes was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. "I will teach her," Mrs. Reyes said, "free of charge. This child has a gift from God. It would be a sin not to nurture it." So Maria's real education began. 3 times a week, she walked to Mrs. Reyes's house after school. She learned to read music. She learned to breathe properly. She learned to place her voice, to support it with her diaphragm, to shape vowels and consonants for maximum beauty and clarity. She learned Italian and German and French pronunciation for the songs she would eventually sing. Mrs. Reyes was strict and demanding. If Maria made a mistake, they would repeat the phrase 10 times, 20 times until it was perfect. But she was also kind. She gave Maria cookies and cold water. She told her stories about the great singers she had heard when she was young. She made Maria believe that anything was possible. When Maria was 12, Mrs. Reyes entered her in a local competition. Young singers from all over Manila came to compete. Maria wore a white dress her mother had sewn by hand. She was terrified. Her hands shook. Her stomach hurt. But when she walked onto that stage and opened her mouth to sing, something magical happened. The fear disappeared. The nervousness vanished. There was only the music. Only the sound of her voice filling the room. Only the feeling of complete rightness of being exactly where she was supposed to be. She won first place. The judges said they had never heard such a voice from someone so young. A representative from the Philippine High School for the Arts was there. He gave Maria's mother his card. "Your daughter should audition for our school," he said. "She has extraordinary potential." The Philippine High School for the Arts was a government school for talented young artists. It was free. Students lived there during the week and came home on weekends. The school provided everything: meals, housing, education, and intensive arts training. Maria auditioned and was accepted. At 13, she left her small house and moved to the school. It was hard at first. She missed her mother and father. She missed her two younger siblings, Pedro and Luz. She missed the smell of her mother's cooking and the sound of the rain on the tin roof. But she was surrounded by music. Every day she took regular school classes in the morning and music classes in the afternoon. She studied voice, piano, music theory, and music history. She performed in recitals. She sang in choirs. She discovered opera and fell completely in love with it. The drama, the emotion, the way the voice could express things that words alone could not. Her teachers said she was exceptional. They said she could have a real career. They said she might sing in the great opera houses of the world someday. Milan, New York, London, Paris. When Maria graduated from high school, she auditioned for the University of the Philippines Conservatory of Music. Again, she was accepted with a full scholarship. She was one of the youngest students ever admitted to the program. At the conservatory, her education became even more intense. She studied with professors who had performed internationally. She learned repertoire in multiple languages. She performed in student productions of complete operas. She began to develop her own artistic identity, her own interpretation of the music she sang. When she was 20, a concert promoter heard her sing at a university recital. He was impressed. He offered her a spot in a concert he was organizing, an evening of opera arias featuring young Filipino talent. The concert would be held at the Cultural Center of the Philippines, one of Manila's most prestigious venues. Maria was terrified and thrilled at the same time. This was her big chance. Her real debut as a professional singer. She practiced for weeks. She worked with her teacher on every phrase, every breath, every note. The night of the concert arrived. Maria stood backstage in a beautiful gown borrowed from a generous donor. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst through her chest. When her turn came, she walked out onto that huge stage. The lights were so bright she couldn't see the audience. She could only hear them. The rustling of programs, the coughing, the whispers. The orchestra began. Maria took a breath and sang. She sang Cuando Monvo from La Bohème. She sang Glitter and Be Gay from Candide. She sang Summertime from Porgy and Bess, giving it a Filipino flavor that made the audience gasp with delight. When she finished, the applause was deafening. People stood up. They cheered. They shouted, "Brava, brava!" Maria felt like she was flying. This was it. This was what she was born to do. After that night, opportunities came quickly. She was invited to sing at more concerts. She performed in provincial cities and towns. She sang at weddings and corporate events and government functions. She recorded demos. A record label showed interest. Newspapers wrote articles about her, calling her the Nightingale of Manila and the voice of a generation. She traveled to Singapore to perform, then to Hong Kong, then to Kuala Lumpur. She was building a reputation across Southeast Asia. She was making good money, enough to send some home to her parents, enough to save for her future. Her manager started talking about Europe, about applying to young artist programs in Italy and Germany, about taking her career to the next level. Maria's dreams were coming true one by one. She was 23 years old and the whole world seemed to be opening up before her. Then her mother got sick. It started with a cough that wouldn't go away. Then she got tired easily. Then she started losing weight. Maria's father took her to the hospital. The doctors ran tests. When the results came back, the news was bad. Very bad. Cancer. Lung cancer, even though Maria's mother had never smoked a day in her life. The doctor said they could treat it. Chemotherapy, radiation, maybe surgery. But the treatments were expensive. Very expensive. More expensive than Maria's family could afford. They had some savings, but it wasn't nearly enough. Maria didn't hesitate. She used all her savings to pay for her mother's first round of treatments. When that money ran out, she borrowed from friends. When that wasn't enough, she sold everything she could. Her jewelry, her nice clothes, her music equipment. She kept performing, but she couldn't travel anymore. She needed to stay in Manila to be close to her mother. That meant she had to turn down international opportunities. Her manager was frustrated. The record label lost interest. Her career momentum slowed, then stopped. Her mother fought hard. She endured the chemotherapy, which made her hair fall out and her skin turn gray. She suffered through the radiation, which burned her skin and made her so tired she could barely stand. She had surgery to remove part of her lung. She survived, but just barely. For 2 years, Maria's life revolved around hospital visits and medical bills and watching her mother suffer. She kept singing because she needed the money. But the joy was gone. Singing became work. Singing became a tool for survival, not an expression of her soul. Then, just when it seemed like her mother might recover, she got sick again. The cancer had spread. This time, the doctors said there wasn't much they could do. They could make her comfortable, but they couldn't save her. Maria's mother died on a Tuesday morning in March. She was 52 years old. Maria was 25. She held her mother's hand as she took her last breath. Her mother's final words were, "I'm sorry." "For what, Mama?" Maria asked through her tears. "For your dreams. You gave up your dreams for me." "No, Mama, you were my dream. You and Papa and Pedro and Luz. You were always my dream." But after her mother died, Maria looked at her life and saw only ruins. She had debt. Mountains of debt from medical bills. Her father was devastated by grief and couldn't work. Pedro was 15 and Luz was 13. They needed to stay in school. They needed clothes and food and books. Maria tried to restart her career, but it was too late. The momentum was gone. The opportunities had passed. Other young singers had taken her place. Her manager had moved on to other clients. The record label had forgotten about her. She performed at small events for small amounts of money. She gave voice lessons to children whose parents could pay. She sang at karaoke bars on weekends to make extra cash. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. Her aunt, Tita Carmen, lived in the United States. She had moved to California 20 years earlier and married an American man. She had a good job and a nice house. She called Maria one day and made an offer. "Come to America," Tita Carmen said. "Come and stay with me. You can work here. Make good money. Send it back to your father and your siblings. There are more opportunities here." Maria didn't want to go. America seemed impossibly far away. A different world. But what choice did she have? She couldn't support her family in the Philippines. She couldn't rebuild her career. She couldn't even pay off her debts. So she applied for a visa. She packed a single suitcase. She said goodbye to her father and her siblings, promising to send money as soon as she could. She said goodbye to Mrs. Reyes, who cried and held her tight. "Don't stop singing," Mrs. Reyes said. "Promise me. No matter what happens, don't let your gift die." "I promise," Maria said. But even then, she wasn't sure she could keep that promise. She flew to Los Angeles. Tita Carmen picked her up at the airport and drove her to a small apartment in a neighborhood where many Filipino families lived. The apartment was clean but cramped. Maria would share it with her aunt and her aunt's husband. "It's temporary," Tita Carmen said, "until you get on your feet." Getting on her feet took longer than Maria expected. Her college degree from the Philippines meant nothing here. Her music training, her performance experience, her reputation as the Nightingale of Manila, none of it mattered. She was just another immigrant looking for work. She found a job cleaning houses. Then she found another job washing dishes at a restaurant. Then she found a third job at a hotel cleaning rooms. The work was hard and the pay was low, but she sent every extra dollar back to Manila. Her father needed it. Pedro needed it. Luz needed it. Years passed. Maria moved from cleaning hotel rooms to cleaning the hotel's event spaces. It was slightly better pay and more stable hours. She got used to her new life. She made a few friends among the other hotel workers. She rented her own small apartment. She bought an old car, but she stopped singing. Not completely. She still sang in the shower in her car, sometimes late at night when she couldn't sleep. But she never sang for other people. She never performed. That part of her life was over. She had locked it away in a box in her heart and thrown away the key. Or so she thought. Now, standing in this small room behind the stage at the Grandview Resort, waiting to perform for 200 rich people, Maria realized the key had never really been lost. It had been there all along, waiting for the right moment. Waiting for this moment. She opened her eyes. Marcus was looking at her with concern. "Are you okay?" he asked. "You look like you're far away." "I was," Maria said. "But I'm back now. I'm ready." Through the wall, she heard Rebecca finishing her announcement to the guests. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our performer for this evening, Maria Santos." It was time. There was no turning back now. Maria took one last deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and walked toward the stage door. Maria's hand touched the cold metal handle of the stage door. For a second, she froze. Behind this door were 200 people who didn't know her, didn't believe in her, and probably didn't want to hear her sing. Behind this door was judgment and criticism and the possibility of complete failure. She could still turn around. She could tell Rebecca this was a mistake. She could go back to being invisible, safe, protected from disappointment. But then she heard her mother's voice in her head, not the sick, weak voice from the hospital. The strong, loving voice from when Maria was 7 years old. "You have a gift, Anak. A real gift." Maria pushed open the door and walked onto the stage. The ballroom was even more beautiful from this angle. The chandeliers seemed bigger and brighter. The tables stretched out in perfect rows, each one decorated with flowers and candles. And the people. So many people, all dressed in their finest clothes, all turning to look at her. Maria's borrowed heels clicked against the wooden stage floor. Each step felt heavy and slow, like walking through water. The lights were hot on her face. She could feel sweat starting to form on her forehead, but she couldn't wipe it away. She had to keep walking. Keep moving forward. She reached the center of the stage and stopped. The piano was to her right, where Marcus sat with his hands poised over the keys. He gave her a small nod of encouragement. To her left was a microphone stand, but Maria ignored it. She wouldn't need amplification. Opera singers didn't use microphones. Their voices were trained to fill huge concert halls without any help. Maria looked out at the audience and saw exactly what she expected to see. Doubt, confusion, skepticism. Some people looked annoyed, like their time was being wasted. Others looked curious but not hopeful. A few were still talking to each other, not even paying attention. In the third row, Maria saw a woman in a diamond necklace lean over to whisper something to the man next to her. The woman's lips curved into a small, mean smile. The man chuckled quietly. They were laughing at her. At the cleaning lady who thought she could sing opera. In the back row, a group of younger guests were looking at their phones, not even pretending to be interested. One man checked his watch. A woman yawned behind her hand. Near the front, an older gentleman with silver hair and an expensive suit sat with his arms crossed over his chest. His face showed no expression at all. He looked like a judge waiting to give a verdict. And the verdict was already decided. Guilty. Not good enough. Wasting our time. Maria felt all of this. She saw every doubtful look, every whispered comment, every person who had already decided she would fail. The old fear tried to rise up in her chest. The voice of self-doubt tried to speak. "You're not good enough. You're too old. You've been away too long. You're just a cleaning lady. What were you thinking?" But then Maria did something she had learned from Mrs. Reyes all those years ago. She closed her eyes, not to hide from the audience, but to go inward, to find her center, to remember who she really was. She took a breath, not a normal breath, a singer's breath, deep and full, drawing air all the way down into her belly. She felt her ribcage expand. She felt her body preparing itself. She opened her eyes and nodded to Marcus. He placed his fingers on the piano keys and began to play the opening bars of O mio babbino caro. The introduction was gentle and sweet. The melody floated through the room like a butterfly. Some of the guests stopped talking. Some turned their attention to the stage. Others continued to chat quietly, assuming this would be just another mediocre performance they had to sit through politely. Then Maria opened her mouth and sang the first note. The sound that came out was pure and clear and impossibly beautiful. It soared up to the high ceiling of the ballroom and seemed to hang there, shimmering in the air. It was not a loud sound, not yet, but it was so perfectly placed, so perfectly supported, that it carried to every corner of the vast room without any effort. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Every conversation stopped. Every head turned. Every phone was lowered. The woman with the diamond necklace's smile froze on her face. The man who had been checking his watch looked up in shock. The silver-haired gentleman in the front uncrossed his arms and leaned forward. Maria continued to sing. O mio babino caro meant "Oh, my dear papa" in Italian. It was an aria from Puccini's opera Gianni Schicchi. In the opera, a young girl begs her father to let her marry the man she loves. It was a simple story, but the music was heartbreakingly beautiful. Maria sang each phrase with perfect technique and deep emotion. Her voice was a lyric soprano, warm and glowing in the middle register, bright and powerful in the high notes. She had not lost her training. All those years of singing in her car, in the shower, alone in her apartment, they had kept her voice alive. But more than technique, Maria brought something else to the music. She brought her own story. When she sang about love and longing and hope, she was singing about her own life. About the career she had loved and lost, about the dreams she had buried, about the mother who had believed in her, about the long years of silence and hard work and keeping her gift hidden. All of that emotion poured out through her voice. It colored every note, every phrase. The audience wasn't just hearing beautiful singing. They were feeling something. They were being touched by something real and true and deeply human. The aria built toward its climax. Maria's voice grew stronger, more passionate. She sang about throwing herself off a bridge if she couldn't have her heart's desire. It was dramatic and operatic and completely sincere. Then came the final phrase. Ah, mi piace, mi piace. Oh, I love it, I love it. Maria's voice soared up to a high note that seemed to hang suspended in the air. It was clear and pure and so beautiful that several people in the audience felt tears spring to their eyes without knowing why. She held the note, letting it ring through the ballroom. Then at exactly the right moment, she allowed it to fade away into silence. For 3 full seconds, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The silence was complete and absolute. Then the applause started. It began with one person in the back row. Then another person joined in. Then another. Within seconds, the entire room was clapping. But it wasn't polite, obligatory applause. It was enthusiastic, surprised, genuine applause. People were not just clapping with their hands. They were slapping the tables. They were stamping their feet. They were shouting, "Bravo, brava." And then, something happened that Maria had only experienced a handful of times in her entire career. The audience stood up. Not just a few people. Not just the front rows. Everyone. All 200 guests rose to their feet in a standing ovation. The woman with the diamond necklace was standing and clapping with her mouth open in shock. The man who had been checking his watch was on his feet, applauding enthusiastically. The silver-haired gentleman was standing too, clapping slowly and deliberately, his face showing something that might have been respect. Maria stood on the stage, stunned. She had hoped to get through the performance without embarrassing herself. She had hoped the audience would be polite. She had never expected this, never imagined this kind of response. Rebecca stood at the side of the stage with tears running down her face. She was clapping and laughing and crying all at the same time. Marcus, still seated at the piano, looked up at Maria with an expression of awe. He mouthed the words, "That was amazing." The applause continued for what felt like forever. Maria didn't know what to do. She did what performers always do. She bowed, first to the center of the audience, then to the left, then to the right. The applause only got louder. Finally, after what must have been 2 or 3 minutes, the applause began to fade. People sat back down. They were talking excitedly to each other. They were pointing at the stage. They were pulling out their phones to text their friends. "Did you hear that? Where did she come from? That was incredible. I've never heard anything like it. Who is she?" Maria stood at the center of the stage, her heart pounding. One song. She had sung one song. She needed to sing more. She looked at Marcus and mouthed, "Ave Maria." He nodded enthusiastically. He knew Schubert's Ave Maria very well. It was one of the most famous classical songs ever written. Every pianist learned it. Marcus played the opening bars. The melody was different from the first aria, more reverent, more spiritual. The piano created a gentle, flowing accompaniment that sounded like water rippling over stones. Maria took another breath and began to sing. Ave Maria, gratia plena. Hail Mary, full of grace. This song was different from the first. It was quieter, more intimate. Maria's voice became soft and pure like a prayer. She shaped each Latin word with care, making sure the meaning came through even if people didn't understand the language. The ballroom felt like a church. The chandeliers seemed to glow softer. The candles on the tables flickered gently. People sat very still, hardly daring to move, as if any sound might break the spell. Maria sang about grace and blessing and holiness. She sang about hope and faith and the possibility of redemption. She had not been a religious person for many years. The suffering she had witnessed, the loss she had endured, had made her doubt. But singing this song, she felt something stir in her soul. Not religious faith exactly, but something like it. A sense that beauty still existed in the world. That grace was still possible. That it was never too late to come home to yourself. The song built slowly toward its emotional peak. Maria's voice grew warmer, richer, more full of feeling. She sang the final Ave Maria with such tenderness that several people in the audience openly wept. Not sad tears, something else. Tears of recognition. Tears of being touched by something true and beautiful. The last note faded away into silence. This time the silence lasted even longer. 5 seconds. 6. 7. People seemed unable to move, still held by the music. Then the applause erupted again, even louder than before. People were on their feet instantly. They were cheering. They were wiping their eyes. They were looking at each other with expressions of wonder. "More!" someone shouted. "More, please." Another song. Someone else called out. "Don't stop!" A woman's voice rang out from the middle of the room. Maria looked at Rebecca, who was nodding enthusiastically and making keep-going gestures with her hands. Maria looked at Marcus, who grinned and gave her a thumbs up. Okay, one more song. Maybe 2. She could do this. She was doing this. After 20 years of silence, she was singing again. Really singing. For an audience that wanted to hear her, that appreciated her, that understood what they were witnessing. She decided to sing something different, something that would show her range and power. She would sing Casta Diva from Bellini's opera Norma. It was one of the most difficult arias in the soprano repertoire. It required perfect breath control, flawless technique, and the ability to sustain long, flowing phrases. She told Marcus what she wanted to sing. His eyes widened. "Are you sure?" he whispered. "That's really hard." "I'm sure," Maria said. And she was. Marcus began the introduction. The melody was haunting and mysterious. It sounded like moonlight, like magic, like something from another world. Maria began to sing, Casta Diva che in argenti. Chaste goddess who silvers. It was an invocation to the moon goddess, a prayer for peace. This aria showed everything Maria could do. Her voice floated effortlessly through the long ornamented phrases. She executed perfect trills and grace notes. She sustained notes that seemed to go on forever without any visible effort. Her breath control was so good that it seemed like she didn't need to breathe at all. But beyond the technique, there was the emotion, the longing for peace, the plea for understanding, the hope that something better was possible. Maria poured everything into this performance, all her years of loss and struggle, all her suppressed dreams and hidden gifts, all her love and pain and hope. The aria built to a powerful climax. Maria's voice filled the entire ballroom, reaching into every corner, touching every heart. She was not a cleaning lady anymore. She was not an immigrant struggling to survive. She was an artist, a singer, a vessel for beauty and truth. She sang the final phrase and held the last note. It rang through the ballroom like a bell, pure and true and absolutely perfect. Then she released it gently, letting it fade into silence. The silence that followed was profound. It was the silence of people who had just witnessed something extraordinary, something they would remember for the rest of their lives, something they would tell their friends about, something that had changed them, even if just a little bit. Then the applause began. But this time it was different. It was not just enthusiastic. It was reverent. It was the kind of applause that says, "Thank you. Thank you for sharing your gift with us. Thank you for this moment of beauty in a world that often lacks it." People stood and clapped for 5 full minutes. Some were crying openly now. Others simply stood in silence with their hands pressed to their hearts. The silver-haired gentleman in the front row was applauding with tears streaming down his face. Maria bowed again and again. She felt lighter than air. She felt like she had grown wings. She felt alive in a way she hadn't felt in 20 years. This was who she was. This was who she had always been, underneath the gray uniform and the tired smile and the quiet acceptance of a small life. She was a singer, an artist, someone with a gift worth sharing. And now, finally, after 20 years of silence, the world was listening. Maria finally stepped off the stage after her third aria. Her legs felt shaky, like they might not hold her up. The adrenaline that had carried her through the performance was starting to fade, and she suddenly felt exhausted. But it was a good exhaustion, the kind that comes after doing something that matters. Rebecca rushed to her side immediately. Maria. That was unbelievable. I can't believe you've been working here for 3 years and I never knew you could do that. She grabbed Maria's hands and squeezed them tight. Her eyes were still red from crying. I never told anyone, Maria said simply. It didn't seem important. Not important? Are you kidding me? That was the most beautiful singing I've ever heard live. And I've been to the opera in New York, in San Francisco. This was better. This was real. Rebecca was talking fast, her words tumbling over each other in excitement. Marcus came over, shaking his head in amazement. You're incredible. I mean, I play for performers all the time. Wedding singers, lounge singers, even some semi-professional opera singers. But you're the real deal. Why aren't you performing professionally? It's a long story, Maria said. She was saved from having to explain by the sound of people calling her name. Excuse me, Miss Santos, over here. Can we talk to you? Please, just a moment of your time. Maria turned to see several guests approaching. They had left their tables and were making their way toward the stage area. Rebecca quickly positioned herself as a sort of buffer between Maria and the small crowd forming. Ladies and gentlemen, please give Miss Santos a moment to catch her breath, Rebecca said in her professional event coordinator voice, but she was smiling. This was exactly the kind of excitement the charity event needed. The first person to reach Maria was the silver-haired gentleman who had been sitting in the front row. Up close, Maria could see that he was probably in his 60s, with kind eyes and an expensive suit that probably cost more than she made in 6 months. Miss Santos, he said, extending his hand. My name is Charles Worthington. I'm on the board of directors for the Metropolitan Opera in New York. I also serve on several foundations that support classical music education. He paused, seeming to search for words. I want you to know that I have been attending opera performances for 40 years. I have heard some of the greatest singers in the world. And what you just did up there ranks among the finest performances I've ever witnessed. Maria felt her face grow hot. She didn't know what to say. Thank you. That's very kind of you to say. It's not kindness. It's truth. Charles reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card. I would very much like to talk with you about your training, your background, and your plans. The opera world is always looking for exceptional talent. And you, Miss Santos, are exceptional. He pressed the card into her hand. Before Maria could respond, another person stepped forward. This was a woman in her 50s wearing an elegant green dress and simple jewelry. I'm Dr. Patricia Chen, she said. I run the Classical Music Foundation. We provide grants and support for talented musicians. I would love to help you restart your career, if that's something you're interested in. A younger man in a stylish suit introduced himself next. David Ramos from Luminous Records. We specialize in classical crossover albums. We're always looking for voices that can bridge the gap between classical and popular audiences. Your voice would be perfect for that. More people came forward. A concert promoter who wanted to book her for local performances. A professor from the music department at the university who wanted to know if she'd be interested in teaching. A wealthy patron of the arts who wanted to sponsor a recital. Maria's head was spinning. All these people, all these opportunities, all from singing 3 songs. It felt surreal. Like a dream she might wake up from at any moment. The woman with the diamond necklace, the one who had been laughing at Maria earlier, approached hesitantly. Her mean smile was gone. Now she looked embarrassed and awed. I owe you an apology, the woman said quietly. When you first came out, I thought, well, I judged you. By your appearance. By the fact that you weren't some famous name. I'm ashamed to say I laughed. But you proved me so wrong. That was the most moving performance I've ever seen. You have a gift. A real gift. Maria looked at this wealthy woman who probably had never apologized to a service worker in her life. "Thank you," Maria said. "I appreciate that." Rebecca was collecting business cards from everyone who wanted to contact Maria. Her pockets were stuffed with them. "I'll make sure she gets all of these," Rebecca promised. "And I'll help coordinate any meetings or conversations." After about 20 minutes, the crowd finally dispersed back to their tables. The charity gala needed to continue. There were still speeches to be made and donations to be collected, but everyone was buzzing with excitement about what they had just witnessed. Rebecca pulled Maria aside. "We need to talk, but not here. Come to my office tomorrow. We have a lot to figure out." "Am I in trouble?" Maria asked, suddenly worried. She had abandoned her cleaning duties to sing. Maybe that was against hotel policy. Rebecca laughed. "Trouble? Maria, you just saved this entire event. You probably saved my job. The guests are happy. The charity is happy. The hotel management is happy. You're not in trouble. You're a hero." Maria went to the small dressing room that Rebecca had let her use. She sat down heavily on the chair and looked at herself in the mirror. She still wore the borrowed black dress. Her hair still fell in soft waves around her shoulders. But her face looked different. Younger somehow. Lit from within. She heard a knock on the door. "Come in," she called. A young woman entered. She looked like she was in her early 20s with dark hair and nervous eyes. "Miss Santos? I'm sorry to bother you. My name is Amy Chen. I'm Patricia Chen's daughter. You met my mother earlier." "Yes, I remember," Maria said. "I just wanted to thank you," Amy said, her voice shaking a little. "I'm a voice major at the university. I want to be an opera singer. But it's so hard, so competitive. And sometimes I wonder if I'm good enough, if I should just give up and do something more practical." She paused, wiping at her eyes. "But watching you tonight, hearing your story about working here as a cleaning lady all these years while keeping your gift alive, it made me realize that it's never too late. That real talent finds a way. You inspired me to keep going, to not give up on my dreams." Maria stood and took the young woman's hands. "Don't ever give up," she said firmly. "Life will throw obstacles at you. It will try to make you quit. But if singing is truly in your heart, if it's truly who you are, then you have to find a way to keep it alive. Even if it's just singing in the shower. Even if it's just for yourself. Keep the gift alive." Amy hugged her tightly. "Thank you. Thank you so much." Then she left, still wiping tears from her eyes. Maria sat down again. She pulled out all the business cards that Rebecca had given her. Charles Worthington, Patricia Chen, David Ramos, concert promoters, music professors, wealthy patrons. Each card represented a possibility, a door that had suddenly opened. She thought about her life just a few hours ago, cleaning tables, invisible, safe in her small, quiet world. That life had been bearable because she had convinced herself it was all she deserved, that her time as a singer was over, that she had made her choices and had to live with them. But now everything had changed. In the space of 15 minutes, she had reminded herself and shown the world who she really was. She was Maria Santos, singer, not Maria Santos, cleaning lady who used to sing. The singing wasn't her past. It was her present, her future. She heard voices outside the dressing room. Through the door, she could hear the charity event continuing. The host was thanking everyone for their generous donations. Someone was giving a speech about the children's hospital the money would support. Life was going on, but Maria's life had been transformed. There was another knock. This time it was Marcus, the piano player. "Hey," he said, poking his head in. "I just wanted to say it was an honor playing for you tonight. You made me sound better than I actually am." Maria smiled. "You're a good accompanist. You followed me perfectly even when I made some tempo changes. That's because I was trying to keep up with your interpretation. You really know this music. It's not just technique with you. You understand it. You feel it." He paused. "Can I ask you something? Why did you stop, really?" Maria was quiet for a moment. Then she told him a shortened version of her story. Her mother's illness, the medical bills, the sacrifice, the immigration, the need to support her family, the years of working and surviving and putting her dreams away. Marcus listened without interrupting. When she finished, he shook his head slowly. "That's rough. I'm sorry you went through all that. But I'm glad you found your way back. Tonight proved that you still have it. Whatever it is, that special quality that makes a performer extraordinary. You have it. Thank you, Maria said. That means a lot. After Marcus left, Maria changed back into her regular clothes. She folded the borrowed black dress carefully and left it on the chair with a thank you note for the boutique. She removed the makeup and pulled her hair back into its usual practical bun. She looked like herself again, the cleaning lady, but she felt different inside. She left the dressing room and walked through the back hallways of the hotel. She passed other workers, housekeepers, kitchen staff, maintenance people. Some of them had heard what happened. They called out to her, "Maria, we heard you were amazing. Girl, why didn't you tell us you could sing like that?" "Can you teach me to sing?" Maria smiled and waved but kept walking. She needed to be alone for a while, to process what had just happened, to think about what comes next. She went to the staff locker room and got her things. Her old purse, her car keys, her phone, which she had turned off during her shift. When she turned it on, she saw several missed calls. 3 from her father in Manila, 2 from her brother Pedro, 1 from her sister Luz. She called her father first. He answered on the first ring. "Maria, finally! We have been trying to reach you for hours." "I'm sorry, Papa, I was working." "What's wrong? Is everything okay?" "Everything is more than okay." Pedro saw a video on Facebook. Someone at that hotel where you work posted a video of you singing. It has already been shared thousands of times. Everyone is talking about it. They're saying the Nightingale has returned. "Maria, you sang again. You performed again." Maria felt tears spring to her eyes. She had been so focused on the immediate moment that she hadn't thought about social media. Someone had recorded her performance and posted it online. Her old life and her new life were colliding. "Yes, Papa, I sang. It just happened. There was an emergency and they needed someone and I volunteered." "Your mother would be so proud," her father said, his voice breaking. "She always said you would sing again someday. She believed it even when you didn't." "I know, Papa, I know." Maria was crying now too. "I miss her so much. She's watching you. I'm sure of it. She saw you tonight." And she was smiling. They talked for a few more minutes. Her father told her that people from their old neighborhood were calling. Her first voice teacher, Mrs. Reyes, had seen the video and cried. Old friends from the conservatory were reaching out, asking if it was really her. After she hung up, Maria sat in the locker room for a long time. She watched the video that Pedro had sent her the link to. Someone had recorded the entire performance of O Mio Babino Caro on their phone. The video quality wasn't great, a little shaky, the sound not perfect, but you could still hear her voice clearly. You could still see the emotion on her face. You could still feel the power of the moment. The video had been shared over 5,000 times already. The comment section was full of reactions. "Who is this woman? She's incredible. I was there. It was even better in person. This is what real talent sounds like. Why isn't she famous? I'm crying. This is so beautiful." This made my whole week. Maria read through the comments with a mixture of joy and disbelief. People she had never met, people who knew nothing about her, were responding to her singing. They were touched by it, moved by it, inspired by it. She finally left the hotel and walked to her car in the employee parking lot. It was after 10 o'clock now. The air was cool and fresh. Stars were visible in the clear night sky. Maria sat in her car for a moment before starting the engine. She thought about the girl she used to be. The girl who sang at the cultural center of the Philippines. The girl who dreamed of Milan and New York and Paris. That girl had been so confident, so sure of her path, so naive about how hard life could be. Then she thought about the woman she had become. The woman who cleaned hotel ballrooms and sent money to her family. The woman who had buried her dreams to survive. The woman who had been invisible for so long. And finally, she thought about who she was now. Right now, in this moment. She was both of those people. The dreamer and the survivor. The artist and the worker. The nightingale who had been silent and was now singing again. Maria started her car and drove home through the quiet streets. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, she would meet with Rebecca and start figuring out what comes next. Tomorrow, she would return phone calls and emails from all those people who wanted to help her career. Tomorrow, the future would begin. But tonight, she was just Maria, tired, happy, amazed, and more alive than she had felt in 20 years. Maria woke up the next morning to the sound of her phone ringing. She rolled over and looked at the clock on her nightstand. 7 in the morning. She had only gotten about 5 hours of sleep. Her body ached from the tension and excitement of the previous night. She picked up her phone. It was Rebecca. "Maria, I hope I didn't wake you, but we have a situation. A good situation, but still a situation." Rebecca sounded stressed but excited. "The video of you singing has gone viral. Really viral. Like 100,000 shares viral. And now the media wants to talk to you. Local news stations, newspapers, online magazines. Everyone wants to know your story." Maria sat up in bed, suddenly very awake. "What, 100,000? Actually, it's more now. It's growing every minute. And Maria, the hotel management wants to meet with us this morning. Can you come in at 9? Yes, of course." Maria's mind was racing. Viral, media, management, what did all this mean? "Good, see you then." "And Maria? Congratulations. Your life is about to change in ways you can't even imagine." After Rebecca hung up, Maria looked at her phone. She had dozens of new messages. Friend requests on Facebook from people she didn't know. Emails in her inbox from strangers. Comments on the video that someone had tagged her in. She got out of bed and went to the bathroom. She looked at herself in the mirror. Same face, same tired eyes, same graying hair. But something was different. There was a light in her eyes that hadn't been there yesterday. A spark. She showered and got dressed carefully. Not her work uniform. She wore a simple dress and a cardigan. If she was meeting with management, she wanted to look professional. She put on a little makeup. Not too much, just enough to look polished. At 8:30, she drove to the hotel. The parking lot was busier than usual for a Friday morning. When she walked through the employee entrance, people stopped her. "Maria, you're famous. I saw the video. You were amazing. Can I get a selfie with you?" Maria smiled and thanked them but kept moving. She was nervous about the management meeting. What did they want? Was she in trouble for abandoning her cleaning duties? For using hotel property without permission? For creating such a scene? Rebecca met her in the lobby. "They're waiting for us in the conference room." "Don't worry. This is all good news. I promise." They walked together to a large conference room on the executive floor. Maria had never been up here before. The carpets were thick and soft. The walls had expensive art. Everything smelled like money and power. Inside the conference room, 3 people were waiting. Maria recognized Mr. Harrison, the hotel general manager. He was a tall man with gray hair who always wore expensive suits. Next to him was Mrs. Vanessa Park, the director of hotel operations. And the third person was someone Maria didn't recognize, a younger woman in a sharp business suit. "Miss Santos, please sit down," Mr. Harrison said, gesturing to a chair. "Can we get you some coffee, water?" "Water is fine, thank you," Maria said. Her mouth felt dry. Once everyone was settled, Mr. Harrison began. "Miss Santos, I won't waste your time with small talk. What happened last night was extraordinary. Not just your performance, which was remarkable, but the response to it. That video has been viewed over 200,000 times now. It's been featured on several national websites. We've had calls from media outlets all morning." He paused and looked at her seriously. "This is a tremendous opportunity, not just for you, but for the Grandview Resort. We've never had this kind of positive attention before, so here's what we'd like to propose." The young woman in the business suit opened a folder. "I'm Jennifer Collins, the hotel's public relations director. We'd like to offer you a new position at the hotel. Instead of housekeeping, you would become our director of entertainment. You would coordinate all our live music events, perform regularly for our guests, and become the face of our entertainment program. The salary would be triple what you're making now with full benefits." Maria stared at them. Triple her salary. A real position with benefits. Doing something related to music. "But that's not all," Mr. Harrison continued. "We understand that you have an opportunity here to rebuild your performance career. The hotel wants to support that. We'll give you flexible hours so you can take outside performance opportunities. We'll help promote your concerts and recitals. We'll essentially become your sponsor." "Why?" Maria asked. The word came out before she could stop it. "Why would you do all this?" Mrs. Park smiled. "Because last night you showed us that extraordinary talent can be found in unexpected places. Because your story is inspiring and authentic and people are responding to it. And frankly, because having you associated with our hotel is good for our brand. It's a win-win situation. There is one condition," Jennifer added. "We'd like to coordinate some media appearances for you." Nothing overwhelming, but enough to keep the momentum going. Local news interviews. Maybe a small concert here at the hotel that we can livestream. Some social media content. Are you comfortable with that? Maria thought about it. A week ago, she would have said no. She would have been terrified of being in the spotlight. But now she remembered what it felt like to share her gift with the world. To touch people with music, to be seen and heard and valued, yes, she said. I'm comfortable with that. They spent the next hour going over details. Contract terms. Start date. Responsibilities. When they finally finished, Maria signed the papers and officially became the Grandview Resort's Director of Entertainment. Rebecca walked her out of the conference room. Congratulations. This is incredible. I can't believe this is happening, Maria said. She felt like she was floating. Believe it, and it's going to get even better. Remember all those people who gave you their cards last night? We need to start calling them back. We need to start building your career. Over the next few days, Maria's life became a whirlwind. She did an interview with the local morning news show. The host asked her about her background, her journey, why she stopped singing, and why she started again. Maria told her story simply and honestly. She didn't try to make it dramatic or exaggerated. She just told the truth. The interview was picked up by national news outlets. Her story struck a chord with people. The cleaning lady, who was secretly a trained opera singer, the immigrant who sacrificed her dreams to support her family, the woman who found her voice again after 20 years. More opportunities came. Charles Worthington arranged for her to audition for the Metropolitan Opera's Young Artist program. Even though she was older than most candidates, they were willing to make an exception for exceptional talent. Patricia Chen's Classical Music Foundation offered Maria a grant to help her get back into full-time training. They would pay for voice lessons with a top teacher. They would cover the costs of auditions and travel. David Ramos at Luminous Records wanted to produce an album. A crossover album that would feature both classical arias and popular songs, all arranged to showcase Maria's voice. Local concert venues started booking her for performances. Small recitals at first, solo concerts at churches and community centers. But the audiences kept growing. People wanted to hear the woman from the viral video. Maria found a voice teacher, a former professional soprano named Elena Martinez, who had retired from performing to teach. Elena assessed Maria's voice and was impressed. You've kept your instrument in good condition, Elena said after their first lesson. There's some rust, some bad habits from singing without proper guidance for so long. But the foundation is solid. We can build on this. With regular lessons and practice, you could be performing at a very high level within 6 months. So Maria started training again, really training. She practiced vocal exercises every morning. She worked on breathing techniques. She learned new repertoire. She polished pieces she already knew. It was hard work. Her voice got tired. Her body ached. But it was the kind of tired and aching that comes from doing what you love. At the hotel, she transformed the entertainment program. She hired better musicians. She created themed music nights. She brought in local artists to perform. And once a week, she gave her own performance, a mix of classical and popular songs that appealed to the hotel's diverse guests. People started coming to the hotel specifically to hear her sing. Reservations increased. The hotel's reputation improved. Mr. Harrison was very pleased, but the most important change was inside Maria herself. She walked differently now, taller, more confident. She spoke up in meetings. She shared her ideas. She wasn't invisible anymore. She wasn't hiding. One day, about 6 weeks after that fateful charity gala, Maria got a call from her father. Maria, I have news. Good news. He sounded excited. What is it, Papa? Mrs. Reyes, your first teacher, she is very sick. Cancer, she doesn't have long. But she saw all your videos. She saw all your interviews. And she wants to see you. She wants to talk to you before... His voice broke. Before she dies. Maria felt her heart clench. Mrs. Reyes, the woman who had first believed in her talent, who had taught her for free, who had made her promise never to stop singing. I need to go see her, Maria said. I need to go to Manila. She talked to Rebecca and Mr. Harrison. They gave her 2 weeks off. They helped her book a flight. Within 3 days, Maria was on a plane heading back to the Philippines for the first time in 7 years. Manila had changed. There were new buildings, new highways. You're the one who made it all possible, Maria said. You taught me everything. You believed in me when I was just a little girl singing off-key. Mrs. Reyes smiled. You were never off-key. Not even that first day. I knew immediately that you were special. I just had to help you develop what was already there. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Mrs. Reyes said, Will you sing for me? One last time? Maria looked around. Here in the hospital? Why not? I don't care who hears. I just want to hear your voice. The voice I helped train, please. Maria stood up. She didn't need accompaniment. She didn't need a stage or lights or an audience. She just needed her voice and her heart. She sang Ave Maria, the same song she had sung at the charity gala. But this time she sang it softly, intimately, like a prayer. Like a gift for the woman who had given her so much. Nurses stopped in the hallway to listen. Other patients came to their doorways. By the time Maria finished, there were tears on many faces. Mrs. Reyes was crying too. Beautiful, she whispered. So beautiful. Thank you, Maria. Thank you for letting me hear that before I go. Maria visited every day for the rest of her time in Manila. She sat with Mrs. Reyes. She sang for her. She told her stories. She held her hand as the old woman grew weaker and weaker. On Maria's last day in Manila, Mrs. Reyes died peacefully in her sleep. Maria was there, sitting beside the bed, singing softly. The doctors said she probably didn't feel any pain. She just slipped away while Maria's voice filled the room. At the funeral, Maria sang again. The church was packed with Mrs. Reyes's former students. People who had gone on to become teachers, performers, music directors. All of them had been touched by this one woman's dedication and belief in the power of music. Maria sang Panis Angelicus, Bread of Angels. Her voice soared through the church, strong and clear and full of love and grief and gratitude. When she finished, there was not a dry eye in the building. After the funeral, many of Mrs. Reyes's former students came up to Maria. They had seen the viral video. They remembered her as the young prodigy who had disappeared. They were glad she had come back to music. One of them, a woman named Carmen, who now taught at the university, made a suggestion. You should do a concert here in Manila, a tribute to Mrs. Reyes. All proceeds could go to creating a scholarship fund in her name for talented students who can't afford lessons. Maria loved the idea immediately. Yes, absolutely yes. Let's do it. They planned it for 3 months later. That would give Maria time to prepare, time to arrange her schedule, time to do it right. The concert would be at the Cultural Center of the Philippines, the same venue where Maria had first performed professionally all those years ago. Maria flew back to America with a new sense of purpose. She threw herself into her work and training. She had the Metropolitan Opera audition to prepare for. She had regular performances at the hotel. She had voice lessons twice a week with Elena. She had the tribute concert in Manila to plan. The Metropolitan Opera audition was intimidating. She walked into the rehearsal room and saw the panel of judges sitting behind a long table. They were all accomplished professionals, people who had heard thousands of auditions, people who could spot a fraud immediately. But Maria wasn't a fraud. She was the real thing. She sang 3 arias. She sang them with technical perfection and deep emotional truth. She sang them like her life depended on it. When she finished, the judges conferred quietly among themselves. Then Charles Worthington, who was on the panel, spoke. Miss Santos, we are pleased to offer you a place in the Young Artist Program. Normally, we have an age limit, but exceptional circumstances call for exceptional decisions. Welcome to the Metropolitan Opera. Maria felt her knees go weak. She had dreamed of this moment when she was young, and now at 42 it was finally happening. Better late than never. The recording of her album took 3 weeks. David Ramos was a talented producer who understood how to showcase her voice. They recorded a mix of classical arias and popular songs. O mio babino caro, Ave Maria, Time to Say Goodbye, The Prayer, Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Each song was arranged to highlight the unique quality of Maria's voice. When the album was finished, Maria listened to it in the studio. That was her voice, her gift, captured forever on a recording that would outlast her. She thought about her mother and wished she could have heard it. 3 months after Mrs. Reyes died, Maria returned to Manila for the tribute concert. The Cultural Center was sold out. Every single seat. Over 1,000 people wanted to hear the Nightingale sing again. Backstage, Maria felt nervous. More nervous than she had felt at the charity gala. This was her home country. These were her people. They had high expectations. But when she walked onto that stage and saw the Filipino faces looking up at her with pride and joy and anticipation, all the nervousness melted away. She was home. Really home. Not just geographically, but spiritually. She had come full circle. She performed for 2 hours. Classical arias, Filipino folk songs, art songs, everything she had learned and loved over the course of her life. The audience was rapturous. They clapped. They cheered. They cried. At the end, they gave her a standing ovation that lasted 10 minutes. All the proceeds from the concert, over $50,000, went to establish the Mrs. Reyes Music Scholarship Fund. It would provide free music lessons and instruments to talented children from poor families, children like Maria had been. After the concert, Maria stood on the stage and spoke to the audience. Mrs. Reyes taught me that talent is a gift, but what you do with that gift is a choice. For many years, I chose to keep my gift hidden. Life forced me to make sacrifices. I don't regret those sacrifices. They made me who I am. But I also learned that it's never too late to make a different choice, to reclaim your gift, to share it with the world. If my story inspires even one person to pursue their dreams, no matter how impossible those dreams might seem, then everything I went through was worth it. The audience erupted in applause again. Maria bowed deeply, holding back tears. Over the next year, Maria's life continued to transform. She performed regularly at the hotel. She completed the Young Artist program at the Metropolitan Opera and was offered roles in upcoming productions. Her album was released and received excellent reviews. She performed at concert halls across the country. But she never forgot where she came from. She continued to live in her small apartment. She continued to send money to her family in Manila. She visited the hotel's housekeeping staff regularly and treated them with respect and kindness. She remembered what it felt like to be invisible. She also started teaching. She gave free voice lessons to young singers who couldn't afford professional training. She visited schools in poor neighborhoods and talked to students about perseverance and believing in yourself. She became a mentor to young artists who were struggling, just as Mrs. Reyes had mentored her. 1 year after the charity gala that changed everything, the hotel held another event. This time, Maria was the featured performer. Not a last-minute replacement. Not an emergency fill-in. The star attraction. Her name was on the program. People had bought tickets specifically to hear her sing. Before the performance, Maria stood in the dressing room. Not the staff bathroom this time, but a real dressing room with her name on the door. She looked at herself in the mirror. She wore an elegant gown, professional makeup, her hair styled beautifully. She looked like a star, but inside, she was still Maria. Still the girl from Manila who had loved to sing. Still the daughter who had sacrificed for her family. Still the woman who had cleaned hotel ballrooms and dreamed of singing on great stages. The difference was that now she was doing both, living both realities, honoring both parts of herself. Rebecca knocked on the door and poked her head in. "Ready? They're waiting for you." "I'm ready," Maria said. She walked to the stage with confidence. The ballroom was filled with people again, but this time they weren't skeptical. They weren't doubting. They were excited. They knew what they were about to hear. Maria stepped into the spotlight and smiled. She opened her mouth and sang. Her voice filled the room, beautiful and powerful and true, the voice that had been buried for 20 years, the voice that had refused to die, the voice that had finally come home. As she sang, Maria thought about everything that had led to this moment. The loss and the sacrifice, the hard years of invisible work, the courage it took to step onto that stage a year ago, the doors that had opened, the dreams that had been reborn. She thought about her mother, who had believed in her gift when she was just a little girl. She thought about Mrs. Reyes, who had nurtured that gift and made her promise never to let it die. She thought about all the people who had helped her along the way. But mostly she thought about herself, about the strength she had found, about the choice she had made to reclaim her voice, about the lesson she had learned, that it's never too late to become who you were meant to be. The song ended. The applause began. Maria bowed, her heart full of joy and gratitude and peace. She was the nightingale. She always had been. She always would be. And now finally the whole world could hear her sing.